My family mocked me for 20 years, but I bought their $400 million estate, and now they're about to face an ending just as expensive and inevitable. My name is Violet. I'm 36 years old, currently serving as Chief Strategy Officer for a financial corporation headquartered in Seattle. But in my family's eyes, I've always been the failure child. Every June, they host a family reunion at the old estate in Monterey Bay, the place I grew up in, the one that used to be my childhood paradise until it became a symbol of exclusion. This year was no different. The email arrived at exactly 9 a.m. on Monday. The subject line, in all caps, read, "Don't forget the Spencer family gathering, summer in Monterey." The sender was my eldest sister, Erin. The tone was cheerful, upbeat, as if the whole family was thrilled to be together. But I knew better. I was just a name added to fill space. Why am I so sure? Because for the past 7 years, I haven't had a proper place to sleep. Rooms are full, Violet. Maybe get a hotel nearby. That's my mother Helen's classic line, like clockwork, year after year, never missing a beat. I was sitting in my 28th floor office, staring at that email, when Julia, my assistant, walked in with 2 espressos. "Family reunion again?" she asked, noticing my dark expression. I nodded. "Let me guess, not enough rooms again this year?" I laughed a short, dry laugh. Maybe this time Erin's daughter needs more space to create art. I didn't need to hear it to know what would happen next. As usual, Mom would call that evening. Her voice sweet as honey, but laced with conditional phrasing. "Sweet Violet, I just don't want you to be uncomfortable. The roof's under renovation. Lily needs a quiet place to paint, you understand?" Every year I'd usually fake a smile and hang up. But not this year. I glanced at the letter sitting on my desk. The one appointing me as Executive Vice President for the entire Northwest region, a role I had spent over a decade working toward, rising above fierce competition, never slowing down. They didn't know and probably never cared. I remember the summer I was 11, the year everything began to shift. "Violet, go do the dishes. Mom and Erin have to get the reception ready." Meanwhile, my brother Alex was allowed to sit outside with Dad to learn how to host a party. I stood in the sweltering kitchen, soap bubbles on my hands, listening to laughter echo from the porch, my chest tight. From then on, my role in the family boiled down to one word: support. No one asked what I wanted. I was simply the background to their spotlight. Erin, the radiant, Alex, the ambitious, and me. Good enough not to get scolded, but not memorable enough to be seen. My phone buzzed. A message from Olivia, my best friend from high school, now a creative director at a furniture firm in Chicago. "Monterey again? Want me to send emergency wine?" I replied, "Send me a one-way ticket out of this family tree instead." Then the phone lit up again, this time a call from Mom. I didn't answer, not because I didn't want to talk, but because I already knew what she'd say. A fake invitation hiding the same old trap. I looked out the window, the city of Seattle glowing in silver dusk. I had built an entire life they never bothered to ask about. But now, something felt different inside. Not pain, not resentment, just a quiet, steely thought. The day I received the official letter from the board confirming I would be promoted to regional CEO for the Northwest. Starting July 1st, Erin posted a photo from their pre-reunion picnic. The whole family was eating fruit pies by the beach. My mother commented under it, "Family is everything." I wasn't in that photo. As always, I once believed that success would make them see me differently. I worked relentlessly, graduated top of my class from Cornell, earned a full scholarship for my MBA at Wharton, worked at 3 major investment firms before joining Brookwell Capital, and climbed to my current role. I thought if I became good enough, they couldn't ignore me. But I was wrong. Not long ago, at Mom's 70th birthday party held at a luxury Italian restaurant in San Francisco, I flew in from Chicago, where I was attending a national strategy conference. I arrived on time, wearing a tailored gray silk dress, holding a carefully wrapped cashmere scarf I'd selected in Florence. As I entered, Mom looked at me and said, "Oh, Violet, you made it. I thought you'd be too busy." Before I could set the gift down, she turned and embraced Erin. "My darling girl, that dress matches your eyes beautifully." I stood there, surrounded by crystal glasses and chandeliers, feeling like I had just walked into a room where I was never truly invited. The tipping point came when Alex, my brother who's gone bankrupt 3 times chasing vague tech startups, stood up and gave a speech that had the whole family clapping wildly. We must always believe in each other, like Mom always believed in me through all my ventures. Mom nodded tearfully while Dad clinked glasses with Uncle Stan, as if they just heard a legendary CEO speak. No one asked what I did. No one mentioned the multi-million-dollar deals I was managing. Not a single word about me, as if I didn't exist. I sat silently, forcing down cold pasta while Mom recounted Erin's childhood fashion sense. She could color-match dresses at 5 years old. Such natural taste. I had redesigned Brookwell Capital's entire office and won an award for corporate interior design, but to Mom, that wasn't worth mentioning compared to a child's pink dress. A few days later, I offered to help finance repairs for the Monterey house. The front roof had been covered in moss for over a year. Mom coolly replied, "Oh, Erin and her husband got it. They're planning something. You're always so busy I didn't want to bother you." I went quiet. That estate was where I learned to swim, where I read my first novels on the porch bench, where I once dreamed I'd get married someday. Now, I was a stranger in my own childhood home. Olivia, the only friend who'd stuck with me all these years, once said during dinner, "You're not the failure in that family. They just can't handle the fact that the one they underestimated became the most successful." I smiled but didn't argue because, deep down, I knew she was right. That night I stayed up until 3 a.m. in my penthouse apartment, gazing at the glittering Seattle skyline. I opened my laptop, logged into a real estate platform specializing in California vacation homes. The beachside estate, my family's old house, had been quietly listed 3 weeks ago and no one told me. I knew why. They didn't think I had any reason to care, or worse, they thought I couldn't afford it. I took a screenshot and texted Olivia. It's time for the final move. Not for revenge, but to reclaim what should have been mine all along. This time, they wouldn't be able to pretend I didn't exist. 2 weeks after Mom's birthday party, I got the final reminder email about this year's family reunion. Erin again, still pretending to be all bubbly and close. "Hey fam, don't forget the second weekend of June. If you arrive early, help set up the barbecue tent." I scanned the attached list. Everyone had their own room. Erin and her husband in the upstairs suite, Alex and his new girlfriend in the west wing. Even the kids had a designated area. And me? Not a word, not a mention, just one faint note at the bottom. "Violet, if attending, may want to book an Airbnb nearby. We're at full capacity. Hope that's okay." I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, not angry, not sad. I expected it. But this time, instead of feeling excluded, it was like something clicked inside me. That evening, as the city went quiet, I reopened the real estate site, filtered by Monterey Vacation Homes. The estate appeared at the top, its facade fading, roof tiles stained. A note saying, "Needs renovation. Price reduced 20% from last year." I clicked transaction history. The home had been refinanced 2 years ago. The loan balance was barely touched. That's why they were desperate to sell. My family, always boasting about tradition and family values, was trying to preserve appearances by hosting a reunion in a house about to be foreclosed. I sighed. As a child, that house had felt like my only safe place. But with every year, every dinner I was excluded from, every folding chair I was pushed into, every photo I was left out of, that home became a symbol of denial. Now, I could turn it into proof that I was never the one left behind. I called Laura, my attorney and financial advisor, first thing the next morning. "You want to buy it?" Laura asked, surprised. "Under your real name?" I smiled. "No, use the holding company we set up last year. Violet doesn't need to show up anywhere." "Nicely done," she laughed. "I'll start the process. Don't tell anyone in the family." "I've never told them anything," I said. "Not even when I made Forbes. No reason to start now." Within 3 weeks, everything went smoothly. The seller, a bank representative, didn't ask questions as long as the money came fast. I signed the contract from my Seattle office, my coffee still hot on the table. As the pen lifted from the final page, Laura looked at me. "You're now the legal owner of the Spencer Estate in Monterey Bay. Congratulations." I gripped the new key in my hand. Small, cold, sharp, but to me, it represented everything I had earned. Not revenge. Restoration. I didn't tell anyone. Not Olivia, not Julia, not even Remy, my closest colleague. I simply scheduled a 3-day getaway to coincide with the reunion weekend. I arrived in Monterey on Thursday morning, 3 days early. In the passenger seat was my Hermes bag and a thick portfolio stamped with the Hanley Corporation logo, the fintech company I had just finalized a merger with a few hours prior. The Hanley-Brookwell deal, worth over $400 million, had wrapped up quietly but sent shockwaves through the investment world. And I, the lead on strategy and negotiations, not only delivered but had been nominated for international vice president. A new executive position in Singapore awaited me once the merger was formally announced next month. I never told my family about it. They never cared. To them, I've always been Violet, the quiet one, the distant one, the one who always skips reunions. I used to think becoming chief strategy officer was the peak, but this was the turning point. The offer letter from the board arrived by email, the subject line simply reading, "Congratulations, you've earned this." And for the first time in years, I cried, not because of the title, not because of the bonus, but because I finally felt seen, acknowledged. That afternoon, as I sat on the balcony of the estate that now legally belonged to me, the ocean breeze carrying the salt of old memories, Olivia called. She was in Chicago, having just wrapped her fall furniture collection launch. "I just read the financial report. You actually did it." "Yeah," I replied calmly. "They picked me." "Violet, you don't get it. You're on the front page of the business section in the Wall Street Review. My whole LinkedIn feed is flooded with shares of the article about you." I smiled faintly, still gazing at the sunset. "I know, but my family probably hasn't seen it. Trust me, Aaron is probably fuming somewhere, trying to figure out why Violet Spencer is now the youngest female executive ever promoted at Brookwell." "Aaron will say it's just someone with the same name," I said dryly. "And Alex probably thinks it's a hoax. Are they there yet?" I glanced at the clock. "Tomorrow morning. And I'll be here to welcome them. Don't forget to film their reactions. You deserve every second of this." I closed the call, strangely calm. I used to dream of their approval. Every holiday, every card I sent, I hoped someone in the family would call and say, "We're proud of you." But now, with the truth in print, I didn't need that anymore. The next morning, the national financial broadcast at 8 a.m. featured nearly 2 minutes on the Brookwell-Hanley deal. Footage of me in a deep navy suit shaking hands with the Hanley CEO appeared on screen with the caption, "Violet Spencer, the woman behind the billion-dollar deal that shifted the market." And then my phone blew up. The first message was from Mom. "Sweetheart, was that you? I just saw the news." I didn't reply. Next came Aaron. "Media always loves to exaggerate, but congrats if it's true." I silently locked the screen. Then, "Alex, need a startup advisor? I've got some ideas, maybe we can collaborate." I laughed, not bitterly, just amused. They ignored me my whole life, and now one financial segment had them scrambling back. No apologies, no acknowledgement of the past, just opportunistic hope. I looked around the house. The walls were still the same color, but I had a design team scheduled for next week. From now on, this wouldn't be a house of quiet memories. It would be a monument to the quiet strength they always overlooked. I stood up, stepped into the living room, and pulled out the travel dossier HR had sent that morning. Inside was the relocation plan to Singapore. A penthouse in Marina Bay was waiting for my tour, and a new team was waiting for my leadership. But first, I had unfinished business. My family would arrive the next morning, still thinking they were walking into their house like every year before. They had no idea, and I would be the one to show them, not with words, but with a truth they couldn't ignore. The crunch of tires on gravel echoed through the front gate as I poured coffee in the same kitchen that had once held my childhood breakfasts. Through the window, I saw Mom's familiar SUV pull up, followed by Aaron's car and then Alex's. They stepped out, chatting and laughing like nothing had changed, like this was still their home. I set my mug down, walked slowly into the living room, heels clicking sharply on the wooden floor. "The door's not opening," Mom's voice called out from outside, puzzled. "Aaron, do you have your key?" "Of course, Mom," Aaron said, inserting the key. Click, click, nothing. Alex tried next, still no luck. I opened the door from the inside, hand firm on the knob, and pulled it open gently. The three of them turned, stunned, like I had just stepped out of the wrong universe. "Violet," Mom squinted. What are you doing here?" I tilted my head slightly, smiling. "Welcome to the Monterey estate, please come in." I stepped aside, my voice soft as a sea breeze but sharp as steel. Aaron stepped forward, eyes wary. Wait a second, Mom tried the key twice and it didn't work. How did you get in? Who gave you a key? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked into the living room, where I had laid out a large folder bearing the Reverend Hotel logo. A 5-star resort just 10 minutes away. On top were labeled envelopes for each family member, each containing a golden room keycard. There's something you should probably know, I said, turning to face Mom directly. This house no longer belongs to the family. Silence. I spoke clearly. I bought the estate over a month ago under my private holding company. From now on, anything that happens in this house, including reunions, requires permission from the legal owner. I swept my gaze over each of them, still wearing the polite smile sharper than any insult. Alex was the first to react. Hold on. You're saying you bought this place? With what, your salary? No, I replied, with equity and executive rights from the merger I just led, valued at over $400 million. I opened my iPad, pulled up the news story showing me shaking hands with Hanley's CEO. If you followed the news instead of chasing altcoins, maybe you'd know. Aaron stepped back slightly. Violet, why didn't you tell anyone? Why do it this way? I raised my chin. Because no one's ever asked. When's the last time any of you checked in on how I was really doing? I remember. It was Mom's birthday 2 years ago. I stood at the party table and she asked me to step aside so she could take a family photo. I wasn't in it. Mom slumped into a chair, like someone had pulled the floor from under her. So, what now? Are we still having the reunion here? I shook my head and slid the hotel folder toward them. I've reserved the entire top floor of the Reverend Hotel for the family. Private rooms, a kids' zone, a barbecue terrace, even a gallery space if you want to hang those old photos. Alex opened his envelope, seeing the room key and a calligraphy-style invitation. He swallowed hard. So, what about you? Aaron asked. Aren't you coming? I'll be staying here, I said. I have work, and I'm preparing for my relocation. Relocation to where? Mom asked weakly. Singapore. International Vice President. I'll be leading the entire Asian market starting next quarter. I took a sip of coffee. Don't worry, I'll still send pictures, like you used to send those reunion photos I was never invited to. No one spoke for several long seconds. Finally, Mom stood, hand trembling around the keycard. I'm sorry. I didn't reply, just nodded slightly. Violet, Aaron said quietly, whatever else, you did it. You made it. You surpassed all of us. I shrugged. I don't need to be better than anyone. I just wanted to be treated like part of the family. Something no one's done for the past 20 years. I walked them to the door without bitterness. They left quietly, stepping into their cars and driving away from the house they once believed was theirs. I closed the door behind them, the sound of the lock sliding into place sharp and final. There was no satisfaction in me, just a stillness. The kind that comes when you're the last one still standing after everything. The next afternoon, with sunlight slanting across the porch, Mom stood at the door of the estate again. This time, she didn't bring luggage or an old key, just a small wooden box held tightly in her hands, her eyes sunken from sleeplessness and a regret too deep to name. I opened the door and looked at her in silence. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said in a hoarse voice. I have something I think you should keep. She handed me the box, a worn oak case, its corners rounded with age but carefully wiped clean. I lifted the lid. Inside were yellowed newspaper clippings with headlines I recognized immediately. Young executive leads record-breaking investment deal. The woman behind Brookwell's rise, top under 35. Alongside were my college transcripts, my MBA graduation invite, a copy of my award-winning thesis. I thought you didn't care, I whispered. I thought so too, she replied, eyes still on the box. But every time I saw your name somewhere, I cut it out and kept it, like a habit. Then I told myself you didn't need me, that you'd grown too far beyond my reach. I was afraid you'd succeed without me in the picture. I closed the lid gently. And you stayed silent all these years just because of pride. She nodded, tears slipping down onto her hands. I was wrong. You don't have to forgive me now. I just want you to know I've been watching every step you took, even if I stayed silent for too long. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside, holding the door open. Come in, there's coffee. As she stepped inside, I didn't see the confident figure I'd known. She was no longer the woman who once sat at the head of every reunion table, controlling the room with a glance. Now, she was just a mother who had missed her chance to love at the right time, trying to piece together a fractured memory. 3 hours later, just as the sun fully set, the gate opened again. Trinity stepped out first, no makeup, no heels, wearing an oversized blouse and jeans, holding a thick book and an iced tea. "You still like reading on the balcony?" she asked, trying to smile. "Nelson said I should bring tea." Nelson followed behind, arms full with a file folder and his laptop. He looked sheepish, almost awkward, seeing me standing between our mother and older sister. But no one turned away. "We're not here to apologize," Trinity said softly but clearly, "because we know one afternoon can't fix 10 years of neglect. I've enrolled in an online business management course," Nelson added. "Not to brag, just to start over. If you're willing, I'd like your guidance." I stood still, staring at the two people who used to be the symbols of the favoritism I never had. Now they stood before me with real eyes and real words. "Things don't change overnight," I said slowly. "But at least today we're finally listening to each other." Trinity nodded. "I've taken a 3-month leave from the law firm. I plan to fly out to Singapore to visit you if that's okay." I was surprised. "Not to tell you what to do," she quickly added, "just because you're my sister. And I don't want to look back one day and realize I missed my chance." I pulled out a chair. "Sit down. Your tea's getting cold." We sat there, the 4 of us, beneath a sunset casting deep orange light over the sea, people who had once lost each other now speaking, not with blame, but with a real desire to reconnect. Inside me, something shifted. Not quite forgiveness, but the beginning of acceptance. And sometimes that's more powerful than any form of revenge. My flight to Hong Kong was scheduled for early Monday morning, and I had nearly everything ready. Documents for the Asian Executive Board meeting, the keys to a high-rise apartment overlooking Victoria Harbor, and a suitcase filled with hope and caution. But on Sunday afternoon, while I was sorting papers in my old office, Mom appeared at the door again, her face thoughtful, hands empty. "Do you have a moment?" she asked, her voice soft like the last streak of sunlight. I nodded. "Come in." She sat down, watching me close my laptop. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but if you'll allow it, I'd like to start over from the beginning, on your terms." I looked up at her, my heart unexpectedly softening. "Then listen carefully," I said slowly. "No more favoritism. No more dinners where I'm just background. If you truly want to rebuild this relationship, it starts with listening and respect." She nodded. "No excuses, no defense. I understand, and I'll try to learn that." That evening, Erin came by too, this time alone. She brought a folded map marked with tourist spots around Hong Kong. "Not to control you," she said with a sheepish smile. "You once said you wanted to see the world. I just wanted to contribute, if I could." I looked at her, remembering all those years lost in the shadow of the perfect big sister. But now, Erin's eyes didn't challenge, they invited, patiently and genuinely. "You can visit," I said, "as long as you come as a sister, not a supervisor." She laughed. "A real sister? Is that okay?" I nodded. That night, the whole family sat down for a simple meal at the Monterey estate. For the first time in years, no one fought to be heard. Mom let Nelson speak, who shared an idea for a startup, this time backed by proper market research. "I'm not asking you to fund it, just so you know." He raised his hands, half joking. "But if you have time, could you look at the draft?" I pulled out my iPad. "Send me the proposal. If you're serious, I'll give you a serious response." He smiled, visibly relieved. When dinner ended, I stepped out onto the balcony with a glass of water. Lights from distant houses reflected on the sea, reminding me that the world was waiting. Mom joined me. "Are you really okay with moving that far?" I turned to her. "I'm okay because this time I'm leaving as someone who was chosen, not someone who was left behind." She was quiet for a moment, then asked softly, "And this house?" I smiled gently. "I'll rent it out seasonally, but if the whole family truly tries, I'm open to reserving summer each year for a reunion." She looked surprised. "Really?" "With one condition," I added firmly. "Each year, someone else hosts, Everyone contributes. No more showing up just to take photos for social media. She laughed, tears glimmering. Then I guess I'll have to relearn how to bake from scratch. I looked back at the house, the one that used to make me feel small and out of place, now lit up with warm light and real laughter. The next morning, as the taxi drove me down the winding road away from the estate, I saw Aaron and Nelson waving from the porch and Mom holding up a small sign that read, "Good luck, Violet." I smiled, my eyes misty. Not from sadness this time. The plane took off from California, carrying me into a new chapter. But this time, I wasn't leaving to escape the past. I was leaving to live on my own terms and to open the door for those who truly wanted to walk through it. The morning sky in Hong Kong was nothing like California. No soft ocean breeze, no scent of pine trees. Instead, it breathed urgency, an energy that pulsed through a city that never stopped, where every light reflected ambition. I stood at the window of my new apartment, a warm cup of tea in hand, looking out over the shimmering water of Victoria Harbor. This wasn't running away. This was a decision, a closing chapter, and the start of one where I held the pen. For years, I believed success was the only way to answer dismissal, that if I climbed high enough, stood far enough, they would have to look up and regret. But once I had it all, an international title, a multi-million-dollar apartment, my name on finance magazine covers, I realized revenge only kept me stuck in the past they'd built. The truth was, I didn't need them to see I'd made it. I needed me to believe I was worth it. An email from Nelson arrived around noon. Subject: Week 1 challenge. He attached a new business proposal with a short note. This time, I wrote it not to prove anything, but because I truly want to learn. Thanks for giving me the chance. I smiled, typed a few edits, and sent it back with one line. It's never too late to begin again, if you're sincere. That afternoon, Erin called from New York, where she was attending a short leadership course. I'll be in Hong Kong next month, she said, excited. Not to teach you anything, but to learn how to be a better sister. After I hung up, another message came through from Mom, a photo of the keepsake box, now placed neatly on the family altar beside a new family portrait. Beneath the frame, a handwritten note read, "Family is where you don't have to be perfect to be loved." I didn't cry, but my eyes burned. All through childhood, I had longed for praise from Mom, recognition from Dad, a pat on the back from my brother, or a simple check-in from my sister. But growing up taught me this. Family isn't just where you were born. It's where you're heard, respected, and allowed to be yourself, whether for the first or the second time. True success isn't standing on a peak watching others bow. It's standing firm in life's storm without losing yourself to please anyone else. I could forgive, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And I opened the door again, not out of weakness, but because I was strong enough to set clear conditions. If anyone wants to walk this path with me, they must do so with honesty. No old hierarchies, no inherited rules. As I stepped out of the shuttle at the Kowloon headquarters, a young reporter rushed up, recorder in hand. "Miss Violet, may I ask, what's your greatest success?" I paused, looked at her, and said, "I don't have to beat anyone, as long as I don't lose myself." She blinked, then laughed. "That's tomorrow's headline." I just shrugged and walked into the glass tower, its surface reflecting the deep blue sky above. Violet's story is proof that true worth doesn't come from others' approval. It comes from daring to live authentically. Success isn't for revenge, it's for healing and reclaiming your place in this world. Family, if it wants to be called family, must learn to change, to respect, and to walk beside you, not just when you're weak, but especially when you're strong. And sometimes, learning to stand on your own is how you create a true home.